All right, we're going to go over your answer key for your test. I'm going to do this over the video because it gives you a chance to pause when you need to pause it, or to skip ahead, or to watch it a second time if you need to go back over things. But you can bounce around to the problems you missed. You can pause it if you need to kind of look at your test and see how it went. So we're going to do this with the video. You need those things out though. If you look at what's in blue, you need your test so you can make notes on it as we're going. You'll want a corrections sheet for later, and you need something to write with. So let's go ahead and get going. This we'll come back to later. This is your test corrections sheet. All right, on the first page here, you should have started with number 1. So you can see here, the first thing you should have done was pretty much set up a number line of some form. I put 0 in the middle and I counted up positive numbers this way, negative numbers that way. And then it helps me to see where these numbers should go a little bit clearer. Some of them were positive numbers, some were negative numbers, some were decimals, some were mixed numbers, some were improper fractions. You just had to think about them and where they should go. The one that might have tripped you up was this one. If you think about this, that's really 2 and 2/4, which is equivalent to 2 1/2. So it'll be right there between 2 and 3. This one should right be at -1. This one is about 3/4. You know that. That's between 0 and 1, but closer to 1. -2 and 2/3 would be right here. If you think of that one, go 2 units to the left of 0, and then 2/3 of another unit. And you end up really close to -3. And then -1/2, just between 0 and -1 at the halfway point. In number 2, you had to put these numbers in these boxes over here, and there was a whole bunch of options for what worked. As long as yours worked and they were true and you used the number one time only, you were okay. Thing that had to be here though was that there was only 2 numbers that were equal to each other. Remember these bars here and here, those are absolute value bars. So we read this as the absolute value of -7. And that really just means how far -7 is from 0. And it is 7 units away. So the only other one that represents 7 was that one. So these are really the same number. This represents 7 and that is 7. So they have to go here. Nothing else in the box worked for that bottom row. Number 3, Andrea and Marta were comparing cooler temperatures. And you can see here in the table the temperature that each cooler was keeping the stuff inside. So this was about -3 degrees, this was about 6 degrees, and this was about -4 degrees. You got to think with temperature here, the lower the number, the colder it is. So this is actually colder than that because it's a lesser number, okay? Now, they both wrote the following inequalities, and you can see Marta here in yellow. This was how she thought of the numbers. She thinks this is the least, or in this case, the coldest of the temperatures. And then this one's a little bit greater than that, and this one is the greatest of all 3. Andrea, she thinks this should be the inequality. This is less than this, which is less than that. One of them was right. The question is, who was right? Well, Marta was right. Because if you think of a number line, this is the least of those 3 numbers. In this case, that means it's the coldest. And then this is a little bit greater, or in this case, a little bit warmer. And then this is the warmest temperature of all 3. So I just drew a number line to kind of prove it or explain it. Lots of you used words and sentences, and that was fine too. As long as your explanation was mathematically accurate and made sense, you were okay. And in part B, they want a cooler that keeps the temperature inside more than 3 degrees below the freezing point of water. So think of that as -3. They want a cooler that keeps things colder than -3. Well, go back to your number line here. -3 would be right about where this is right here, okay? And the only thing that would be colder than that would be anything to its left. So it's that one, which is cooler C. Cooler C was the one that met the criteria for that one. You had to kind of explain it or show it, but it was cooler C. Numbers 4 and 5, again, absolute value is back in the problems here. So they're really just wanting to know how far is this number from 0. And negative 3.5 is 3.5 units from 0. It had to be positive. You didn't have to have a plus or a positive sign, but we assume that's positive. Same thing over here. What is the absolute value of 5? Again, how far is 5 from 0? Well, it's 5 units away. The only number that really wouldn't have a positive absolute value would be 0, because its absolute value is 0, and we know 0 is not positive or negative. But almost always, absolute values are going to be positive. Which number has the greatest absolute value? Think of that in terms of which of these numbers is the greatest distance from 0. Okay, so this is 15 units away, that's 34 units away, that's 27 units away, that's 28 units away from 0. So the one that's the greatest distance from 0, negative 34. It had the greatest absolute value. In number 7, you were supposed to put these numbers in order from least to greatest. That was part A. So think of a number line. This would be the furthest left, negative 15. And then if you keep going right from there, you get to this number next, and then you get to this number, and then eventually you'd get to 0 and all the positive numbers. But that's the correct order for part A. But in part B, they ask, what about their absolute values? If you put the absolute values in order from least to greatest, again, we got to shift our thinking now. How far is this from 0? How far is this from 0? How far is that from 0? Because if we take their absolute values, that reverses the order now. So 3.3 is the closest to 0, so it would be the least, and then we'd have 8 and 8/9, and then we would have 15. So the order switched from part A to part B, and the reason was all of these numbers were negative, so when we take the absolute value, it's going to switch the order of them. In number 8, you were to plot the locations first. There were 5 spots right here with coordinates, and you had to put them on the coordinate graph, and that's the pink dots. So you can pause it here if it helps to check where you put yours. The one I saw a few mistakes on was the park. Some people put it over here at 4-0 when really it was 0-4. You can see it right there. But check your locations first. And then let's talk about number 9 now. The gas station is 5 blocks away from the grocery store. So this was the grocery store. And if the gas station's 5 blocks away, it didn't tell us which direction though. So really we could have gone any of 4 directions. So where each of these yellow dots is, that's where it could be. And I listed all 4 locations right there. You only needed 2 locations, but there were 4 you could really have said, if you think about it, like going up 5, right 5, down 5, or left 5. Number 10 and 11 were distance problems. How far was the park from the movie theater? Well, these two are both on the y-axis. So if you count your way between them, you end up with 10 units away or 10 blocks away, like some of you said. And number 11, the distance between the library and the police station. Now we're talking about these two. And it was 8 units away, or again, 8 blocks away. Number 12, the school is located at the library's reflection across the y-axis. Well, we don't know where the school is, but they give us information right here. The library's reflection across the y-axis. Here's the library, here's the y-axis, so that's your line of reflection. And instead of being this far left of that, we want to be that far right of it, because you want to go across the y-axis, and you end up where the blue dot is. Those coordinates were 5, 2. Numbers 13 and 14 were distance problems. I put these in yellow on the graph, negative 5, 2, and negative 9, 2. Again, always start at the origin. There's negative 5, 2, and there's negative 9, 2. So really, they're just 4 units away. The other one, number 14, was these two locations. Well, I made those the green dots, negative 8, 7. and -8, -2. So we're down here in the third quadrant now. The distance between them was 9 units away. And you can count your lines if it helps to see you, but these ones didn't have a graph. You were supposed to think about it or draw your own graph to help visualize if needed. In numbers 15 and 16, we take a single point now and we want to reflect that point. So in this first one, if you think about where -3, 2 is, and look at the graph over here, you can see that -3, 2 would be in the second quadrant. And if we want to go across the y-axis, it's going to go off the screen here, but you want to go across the y-axis and you end up at 3, 2. Okay, you'd be over in the first quadrant for that one. In number 16, now if you start here and go across the x-axis, we'd be going down. Okay, so if you think about it, we're 2 units above the x-axis, so we want to go 2 units below the x-axis, and that changes that coordinate. So it's -3, -2. Number 17, you had to first plot the coordinates of the last 4 sightings on the map of the mysterious sea serpent or the Loch Ness monster, whatever it is. But you can see A would go here, B, C, and D. And if you're not sure, pause and double check. But those had to be right for part A. In B, over time, most of the sightings occurred in quadrant 3. Well, quadrant 3 is this one right here. So as long as your coordinates were both negative, you were okay. Because think about it, you have to go left first, so that's a negative x coordinate. And then you had to go down second, that's a negative y coordinate. So I should have seen 2 negative numbers here. In part C, the distance between A and 9.5, 0. Well, here's A. Now, I had some students think that A and this one were the same point. Not true. This is -9.5. This is +9.5. So we're basically looking here at point A, and then the one they gave you in the problem was over here at 9.5, 0, somewhere around here. And so if you think about a number line, since they're both on the x-axis, think of this as your point of origin. One is 9.5 units left, and the other is this way, 9.5. If you add those distances, you get 19 units between them. So that's how far it was. After that, the last point here, hey, Daddy's making a video. Shh. Okay, in part D, the coordinates of point E, well, those coordinates, because I'm making a video. Yeah, back on, sorry, my kid came in the room. Part E, point E is right up here at 5, 2. So that's point E. You had to graph, you had to really just give those coordinates right there, 5, 2. And then if we go to the next problem, point F is related to point E. Its x coordinate is the same, but its y coordinate is the opposite. So this was the same, but this was the opposite. That becomes 5, -2. And if you think about where those are, that means one's here, and one would really be right down here at 5, -2. And those are 4 away from each other. Okay, so that's why it's 4 units, and you had to explain that. Now, that's the end of the test. What the other page you have, though, is this one right here. And this is where I want you to do your corrections, okay? I want everybody to do these, just to learn from your mistakes. So you can follow the prompts, read the directions here, but you basically list your problem number for all the ones you missed. Again, look for the circles or the X's that show you missed that problem. And then go through that problem with these prompts. I got this problem incorrect because, give the reason. I thought the absolute value was the opposite, or whatever. I now know, well, be specific. The absolute value is almost always positive, whatever the reason is. And then here, work it the right way. Let's get in the habit of doing it the right way. Okay, so do that, and that is your assignment moving forward. Ready, set, go.